All People's Church, Unitarian Universalist. My name is Michael Zepeda, and I will be your co-celebrant this morning. Could I get a scroll on the teleprompter? Our Sunday service is a shared time of worship for all present as we gather for music, spoken words, a time of reflection, and inspiration as a religious community. Let us come together in a spirit of compassion and respect for ourselves and others attending this service. If you're a visitor here today and haven't signed in, please do so. There's a visitor's table by the front door, and signing in will give us the opportunity to acknowledge your visit and place you on our mailing list to receive the weekly emails and our monthly newsletter. Our pulpit today is graced by the Reverend Lori King Nelson. Lori holds a Master of Divinity from Bright Divinity School at TCU, and we are blessed by her affinity with Unitarianism. Lori, we are always welcoming of the expression of your calling here with us, and so grateful for the inspiration we receive in your sharing. Before we continue our service, please note these reminders and announcements. We have a work day next Saturday from 9:30 to noon, and we hope to see you all there. That's from our president, Dan Sexton. Will there be snacks? That seems to be a deciding factor. Snacks? We do have a couple of announcements from our vice president, Rosalind Hunter, and here she comes now.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, so first announcements we have is that a number of board members have had medical issues come up and they're not able to come regularly. If you've ever considered being on the board, we would really appreciate if you would put your name or the name of someone else you suggest in the nomination box that we have now got in the hallway near Coleman Hall. So name and contact information. If you're just considering it or whatever, we would be happy to train you up for next year. So please think about whether you want to serve the church and put that name in there. The other thing is just a reminder, if you haven't turned in your pledge cards, to please do so. And I know a lot of times there are people who are like uncertain about their income and they're not sure if they can say, I can give this much money every month or whatever. But if that's okay, that's okay. You can give us a one-time donation. Say, I got my tax refund, I'm going to give you, $100 or something like that. And just write that on there so we can go ahead and plan next year's budget. Okay? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosalind. And the opening music, I guess. There we go.
one thing I've always wanted to be able to do is to create beautiful music. And I can do that in my head. Misha brings it to life with his heart and soul. So grateful for you. What is our story? Have we been pushed by headwinds or tailwinds? Have we been the headwinds and tailwinds for others? If we are butterflies, it matters. These small things, they matter.
I invite you to rise, embody your spirit for the chalice lighting, our opening hymn, and the spoken affirmation. Our chalice lighting words are from the Reverend Marjorie Montgomery. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. Our opening hymn is number 38 in the gray hymnal, Morning Has Broken. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. The young and the young at heart are now invited to come forward at the chancel here for the story for all ages.
So we may not have any young, but the young at heart are here. And so we're kind of talking about the small things that matter and where we reside in that place. So I've got some little tiny rocks here. And if anyone wants to tell me, what can these rocks do? These little tiny rocks. They what? There's one thing it can do. Yes. Oh, get stuck in your shoe. Drop of water. A slingshot. We're getting there now. We're getting there. Where do you think that this tiny, tiny rock can have its most power. And he was onto something with that slingshot. Yes, when you throw it, you can create an action that has a reaction, right? A couple of weeks ago, a rock about this size hit my windshield on the George W. Bush Turnpike. So now I have a really big crack across the whole windshield, and it was something no bigger than this. That's a lot of power. So what we talk about when we're talking about small things that matter is sometimes we have the power to break something else, to break the food chain, the ecology chain, breaking weather patterns. We have the power to change the flight of our pollinators, butterflies and bees and things like that. One small tiny thing, creating a pesticide in the 40s, that changed all of our pollinators' lives forever, which changed our way of life. We cannot rely on the natural order of things when we interfere in it. But so where's our place in that? And I tried to look for dominoes because that was the best illustration I really could think of for this, is how one thing that we do can cause an effect down the line. But for some reason, nobody has dominoes anymore. So I got these picture frames, and you're just going to pretend they're dominoes. But we can think of ourselves as the first domino that causes something, or we can think of ourselves as the middle domino that is caused by something coming at us. Or we can think of ourselves as the last domino, which has all of these other motions behind it that culminate in something else, that's something that touches us. So, do we want to be a positive force in the world or a negative force in the world? And if we're a positive force, we want to make sure that our energy that is pushing everything forward is doing so for good and helping other people understand that what they may be doing is a negative force in the world. I think of the one, Rachel Carson. She wrote this book. Nobody wanted to read it. Nobody thought it was necessary. She talked about the damage that we are doing in the natural world. When she wrote this, nobody had ever really thought about how bees and butterflies pollinate our world and how that is a benefit to us and part of the necessary chain of life. But once somebody read it, they passed it to someone else, and that person read it. And then someone else read it, and then pretty soon everyone was buying it and reading it and realizing how much power we have in this world, for good or bad, in nature. So one small action. It does not have to be a rock hitting your windshield, but one small action can make a wonderful, wonderful outcome down the road. All right. Let's sing all these good folk out of here.
As we leave this friendly place,
as we Our first reading is by Gary Paul Nabham, and this is adapted. We welcome monarchs, a humble butterfly, back into our country after its pilgrimage of many perils, as it fled its overwintering grounds to go through its iconic metamorphosis here among the wild bitter herbs of this land. To keep these monarchs alive as creation intends, and as symbols of our desire to protect that to which we are connected, to ensure safe passage across all borders, we reflect on our purpose in the lives of these butterflies and other imperiled pollinators who help to bring us our daily bread. We also give gratitude to the memory of Rachel Carson, the scientist who first alerted us to the perils faced by monarchs and other pollinators in her book, Silent Spring, which inspired millions of people to take better care of our diverse creation. Our second reading is by Everett Hoagland, architect of icebergs, snowflakes, crystals, rainbows, sand grains, dust motes, atoms. Mason whose tools are glaciers, rain, rivers, ocean. Chemist who made blood of seawater, bone of minerals in stone, milk of love. Whatever you are, I know this. Spinner, you are everywhere, in all the ever-changing above whirling around us. Yes, in the loose strands, in the rough weave of the common cloth threaded with our DNA on the hubbed, spoked spinning wheel that is this world, this solar system, this galaxy, this universe. Help us to see ourselves in all creation, and all creation in ourselves in one another. Remind those of us who like connections made with similes, metaphors, symbols. All of us are. Everything is already connected. Remind us as oceans go, so go we. As the air goes, so go we. As other life forms on earth go, so go we. As our planet goes, so go we. Great poet who inspired, in the beginning was the Word. Edit our thoughts so our ethics are our politics, and our actions the afterlives of our words.
We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. Each Sunday, we take half of the non-dedicated cash offering that is received and share it with a local organization whose values and goals reflect our own. This quarter, we are supporting the Texas UU Justice Ministry, a statewide justice ministry that raises the voice of Unitarian Universalist values in the public arena and seeks to have those values enacted into legislation and public policy. Please give generously. The gifts of the congregation will be most gratefully received. Will the ushers and the choir please come forward? No choir? Wow. Please rise and we'll sing hymn 298, Wake Now My Senses. In this time, when we seek a connection with all that is our life, we do so that we may give a place for the great questions of our lives, for our longings and our celebrations. As a religious community, we covenant to share both our joys and our sorrows. Each week, there is a journal outside the entrance to the sanctuary where you may write a message of memory or hope before the service. We honor these messages by lighting these 3 candles next to our chalice. Also, at any time during our service, you're welcome to come forward and light a candle in the meditation center here at the side of the chancel. In our book of memory and hope this morning, we have been asked to remember the peacefully protesting college students, Peace for Gaza and Ukraine. Many aggressors find that violence and oppression is the wrong path. Someone else has added, please pray for our community. And finally, someone has said, freedom of speech isn't just for the popular or the official opinion. Remember Kent State, May 4th, 1974. Let us pause for a moment of silent meditation and then Misha will lift our hearts with music.
Thank you for that. So I find myself a little more, I'm not usually a real emotional person, but I've been really emotional the last couple of days. And I know that it totally has to do with the coming of my first great-grandchild, and she is due anytime. So we are expecting her either tonight or tomorrow. And that does something to us, doesn't it? It changes us. It reinforces our connection with others when we have these emotions that are linked to other people. Sure can't wait to hold her. At the Justice Conference at First UU a few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of meeting a woman whose story of her journey into the UU Church struck me as symbolic of how small things matter. She had moved to Dallas from another country and almost immediately found herself divorced and alone. Her mother had found community within the Catholic Church and encouraged her to attend, but because of her divorce, she was never comfortable and continued searching for a community that would accept her as she was. She said it was a critical time for her. She was in need of a support system, a friend. An acquaintance mentioned a UU church in Dallas that basically ticked all the boxes for her. And the rest is more like history in the making. We exchanged contact information, and sure enough, she showed up at the Dallas Furniture Bank a few days later with a large donation of furniture that ended up going directly on our truck to be delivered to a family of 5 who had been rehoused after living for more than 6 months in their car. I use the term history in the making because that is never the end of the story. I've already received a call from the mom telling me that she and her husband have new jobs. The children are finishing up the school year, and they are so grateful that someone cared enough to have provided them a dining table to gather for homework and meals, a sofa, beds. You know, studies show that rehoused persons who are provided a home with furniture are 87% more likely to still be in their home 12 months later. Those who are rehoused without furniture are usually back on the street within 3 months. Small things matter. And what may seem small to us may be huge to someone else. But that's only one example of how, even when we don't see the bigger picture, our actions have an absolute impact on present and future events. There's a film called The Old Guard, about a group of immortals who task themselves with protecting humanity. They go about through the centuries, freeing people from tyranny and oppression, but always feeling that nothing they do makes a real difference. There's always another dictator, another bomb, famine, greed, crisis. At one point, the lead character, Andy, played by Charlize Theron, is telling Copley, a man who has been following their movements throughout history. She tells him that there has been no purpose to their actions, that it has always been just random chaos, and that no one action mattered. Copley reveals that the Old Guard has, throughout time, saved hundreds of people who would go on to save humanity. For example, he mentions that one person they saved would go on to prevent a nuclear catastrophe. Movie magic, right? But is it so far-fetched to believe that we are so deeply connected to a larger system that our actions can change the trajectory of a person, of a people, or of a planet? Too often, we tend to look at life around us as chaos, one instance disconnected from another, feeling that what we do holds no sway over the world we are a part of. Do the people who build computer chips for munitions think about how many people are being killed with the weapon they helped assemble? Do people on assembly lines think of the 35,000 children in the Congo mining toxic cobalt for our phone and computer batteries? Probably not. At least not often. What if we believed we are all connected to a bigger system? That our actions now, today, would have been the result of a previous action and that this could in turn lead to a future action. Any of these actions placing us as either giver or receiver in the past, present, or future. Pando Aspen Grove in Utah is somewhere between 80,000 and 1 million years old. I know that's a pretty large margin of error, but researchers are still working to understand this quaking aspen tree. And yes, I said tree, singular. It looks like a forest, but it's actually just one tree. And it is one of the oldest and largest organisms on Earth. And I've always thought of trees as consisting of roots and a trunk and branches and leaves, but not all trees follow that formula. Some form what scientists call clonal groves, swaths of forest connected underground by a single network of roots, with each trunk genetically identical to the others. Pando means I spread in Latin, and its 47,000 stems cover more than 100 acres. Scientists find it difficult to tell exactly how long Pando has been around, since the individual trunks only live up to 100 to 150 years. But scientists estimate Pando is at least 80,000 years old, and possibly more like 1 million years old. And those estimates are based on how quickly aspens spread. One root system that has supported tens of thousands of stems for an incredibly long time. And driving past, most would just remark on the vast number of trees, never realizing that beneath their feet is a living, breathing system that has supported life on our planet longer than we can even imagine. I tell you about Pando not to impress you with how amazing nature is. We are all humbled by the creation of which we are a part. I tell you because just as this 13 million pound, really old organism depends on a favorable, not hostile, environment for growth, so do humans. And how we go about making that happen matters. Small things matter. Hannah Abdelwahab writes, on a winter day in 1961, Edward Lorenz, a meteorology professor at MIT, entered some numbers into a computer program simulating weather patterns. Later that same day, he repeated the same simulation, but this time he rounded off one variable from 0.506127 to 0.506. He then left his office to get a cup of coffee while the machine ran the simulation. When he returned, he noticed, to his surprise, the result was very much different from the first simulation. That tiny change had drastically transformed and changed over 2 months of simulated weather. How could a tiny difference of 0.000127 cause such a phenomenal change in a weather prediction? Lorenz commented that because everything in life is part of a larger system, even trivial events can have significant impacts on other things. In 1963, he wrote a paper and said that if his theory were correct, One flap of a seagull's wings could change the course of weather forever. He then changed that metaphor to a butterfly. And the phenomenon is now widely known as the butterfly effect. Sounds a whole lot better than the seagull effect. Many writers define this butterfly effect in a more dramatic way by saying that the flap of a butterfly in one country can cause or prevent a tornado in another country. This doesn't mean that the butterfly directly provides energy for the tornado, but it simply means that the flapping of the butterfly's wings represents a small turbulence in the atmosphere, which causes a chain of events, or a domino effect, leading to a much bigger change of events thousands of miles away. Imagine a small snowball at the top of a mountain. As it travels down the mountain, not only does it gain momentum and speed, but it also increases in size and becomes a potentially fatal hazard to whatever is in its path. In The Butterfly Effect of You, Why Your Actions Matter More Than You Think, Tony Faucry writes, when we delve into the profound impact of our seemingly insignificant actions, we unravel the intricate tapestry of cause and effect that defines our interconnected existence. As we navigate the nuances of the butterfly effect in our stories, we uncover the hidden consequences that echo throughout time and space. From the unassuming kindness of a stranger to the pivotal crossroads of major life decisions. Our every choice sends ripples out into the world, shaping the destinies of those around us. What does this butterfly effect have to do with us as individuals? Everything. Just like the butterfly being a part of the larger system in nature, we humans are also part of the larger systems in this universe, where various parts interact and affect each other. So whatever we do, no matter how big or how small, can have a deep impact on others' lives and our own. Researchers are studying the reasons why the Pando aspen grove is dying, and finding climate change is bringing non-native species of insects and fungus into the grove. Human expansion is driving new plant and wildlife into the grove, creating a hostile environment that is reducing its ability to reproduce. These may seem like small things, but they matter. Mule deer eating the new shoots, insects and fungus covering what is left. It matters. I've had the honor of being part of a search committee whose task is to find the right person to lead the Dallas Furniture Bank into its next phase, which will include expansion into Fort Worth and locations west. During interviews with the first couple of prospective executive directors, I found that while all are highly qualified educationally and experientially, if that is a word, not one has spoken to the larger reason that DFB exists. I have yet to hear someone share that it is our obligation and responsibility to care for one another, and that this work moves us toward more positive outcomes for our neighbors. I also have not heard anyone speak to the need to reuse, reduce, and recycle, work that moves us toward a more positive outcome for our planet. What I did hear are corporate buzzwords and desire to rub elbows with the moneyed people of Dallas. Not a word about the 250,000 children sleeping on the floor in the DFW area. Not a word about the efforts of Housing Forward in Dallas and Tarrant County Homeless Coalition in Fort Worth to address in real time the critical unhoused population across our counties. I have 3 more interviews, and I'm crossing my fingers that there are people out there who understand that we are connected to one another and that our positive responses to need matter. Whether it is a dying aspen grove or universities that have portfolios which create harm, or a leader that refuses to utter the words "cease fire," or refusal to create actual affordable housing, or refusing to provide care for children dying of starvation and disease. Everything that has brought us to this point matters. And our responses to those things matter because we also have roots that connect us to every aspect of creation. Are we willing to recognize that our role within the world is meaningful and impactful? Because knowing this can change how we relate to others. What's your story? What butterflies have pushed you forward or pushed you back? When have you been that butterfly for someone else? These small things matter. Will you stand as you are able and join us in the closing hymn, 1064, Blue Boat Home.
not the light of truth, not the warmth of community, and not the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Small things matter. Let us be like the great Pando Grove. Let us spread our love, our goodness, our positivity, our wings, our ability to change life for the better. Service has now ended, and we invite you to join us in the library for coffee and conversation. And may your wings flap beautifully all week long.